Welcome, beloveds, to this section of the 13 Moon Oracle in-depth dive into the archetype of the Lady of Communion. One of my favorites, such a deliciously strong and beautiful energy, balanced in male and female energetics. So what I would like to do is to, before we begin, is to ask you to reach some kind of an object in your reality that you'd like to commune with, that you would like to deepen with. It could be a crystal or a feather or a rock or whatever you feel inspired that's close and not a lot of trouble. It's just an opportunity to do this. And then a pencil and paper, I assume you always have something like that. And then a libation. Now, my libation today is chlorophyll infused lemon water, which is gold and green, which is alchemically how I like to do this, to bring in the archetype in a really embodied way with lemon and chlorophyll in my water. So, but whatever you wish to bring in for yours. And so once you're regathered back here, I'd like us just to take 3 really deep breaths, dropping our energy all the way down out of the mind into the belly, breathing all the way down, feeling the energetic of consciousness moving down into the heart and the belly and out of the regular position that it normally holds in the mind. Hopefully not, but in many cases that is the case. And really breathing the energy down, and on the out breath, letting go of whatever your day has been thus far, emptying out. Becoming with each breath more present, more available to consciousness. Breathing out, emptying out, and on the in-breath, breathing in the green, verdant color of the mother, imagining the green of new leaves emerging, feeling that absolutely viridescent green of new life, and filling yourself with that color as you breathe in. Filling it into the cells, into the muscles, into the bones, into the nervous system, feeling the cooling, embracing frequency of green. Feeling how it's been used in all modalities throughout all time as a healing frequency, because it is the primary color of nature. And so filling ourselves with that frequency this day, knowing that that archetypal energetic and frequency is what is filling us as we sit together. Allowing it to pour up into the light active areas of the brain, the pituitary and the pineal, the hippocampus. Feeling all of the vibrancy of green filling you. If you feel tired right now, allow it to energize you. Just the color frequency. And the other half of this frequency is gold. So while we're up in the head, bring down the gold frequency of the solar logos of divine gold light down through the crown. And allow it to cascade down through the green and merging as it goes in a vortex of green and gold, allowing the molecules to begin to dissolve into each other and cascade down the throat, down the shoulders, and feeling its incredibly vivifying frequency, the merger of green and gold, pouring down through your torso, down your back, noticing any places of contraction and bringing more energy of this unified energy of male and female and gold and green all the way down your back, all the way down your torso, through all the chakras, clearing and cleansing and bringing new life and energy to the chakra system through your intention, through the simplicity of your intention. Washing down all the way down your legs, down your feet, and circulating the energy all the way through the body now of this merged green and gold. And as it circulates, allow it to go out into the subtle bodies as far as you wish, into the emotional body or the mental body or the etheric body, but just allowing this color wash of vibrancy of gold and green to encase you, to surround you, to embrace you. And then coming back into the center of your own heart temple to receive this gifting today, and really feeling your own heart, as the heart is the open gateway to all dimensional communication. So really feeling your heart opening, and being available to consciousness in its full aperture of openness. And continuing to really be with the breath. And as you go through this time, our time together today, to be conscious of the breath, flowing in and out, taking the time it needs to fully fill and fully empty instead of shallow breathing. Allow yourself to do really deep breathing, to be aware of your breath during all that we're hearing and feeling today. And when you're ready to bring yourself into this time space, to bring yourself into this moment fully as you're able to, leaving all expectations and judgments and what I've got to do next out of the space, and really coming very present in this moment in your heart. And let us ask the primary question of this first card. What is communion? I mean, we all have different definitions for what that is. Communion is very different than looking at something. If you're willing to go into communion as you're with something, literally becoming the thing that you're looking at, energy is freed that shifts your awareness into higher frequencies of information. And you begin to resonate with the archetypal energies that created these forms you're looking at or in communion with. Energy is offered back to you from that which is reverently adored. And I just want you to really feel that. Energy is offered back from that which is reverently adored. This is the nature of communion. Communion bridges dimensions. The thing you are looking at is only a veil, and communion parts it. Really consider this. The thing you are looking at is only a veil, and communion parts it. Communion is a medium of transduction into the mythical, magical realms. So let's look at the nature of communion and how it works energetically. If you'll hold whatever it is that you're communing with right now, and I'm not going to say looking at, communing with right now. And if you're not, then use your true imagination to imagine something, a pine cone, it doesn't matter, in your hand right now, because the mind can create it exactly as if it were there. So whether you do or don't, make sure you have something that you're paying attention to in your hand. and really begin to defocus your energy like I ask you to do with all the cards, to let go of 3D coordinates of consciousness that hold everything into place and give everything only one meaning, and open to the open possibility of what communion actually is. By giving yourself this reverently adoring attention to whatever it is, give it to this object that you have in your hand. Just in silence for a minute. Give it absolutely as if you were loving a child, that kind of heart adoration. Really be with it. And send that kind of adoring energy to that object. And if you need to conjure up someone you dearly love or adore and send that energy, then do that. However you can get there, do that. And as you do this, and this will be a practice during this whole moon, with any object that you're with anything that you choose to be in communion with, begin to diffuse your vision just as you do with looking at the oracle cards or with looking at another person in empty presence. And just begin to really diffuse your awareness to where you see the animating energy of the thing itself. Really feeling the animating energy. You'll begin to see more sparkle or more iridescence or more light. But that takes time. It's just like establishing relationships with virtually anyone or anything. Don't assume that's just going to happen right away, or that you're not doing it quote right, because that's not happening. Give yourself more time with whatever you're communing with, and you will begin to see that energy is coming off of it exactly the same way you see around a candle flame. There is that mandala of energy, of gold sparkly light around a candle. And it's the same way with virtually anything you're in communion with, that if you're with it long enough and with enough purity of heart and intention to really commune with it, it will begin to release this information. It will begin to release this energy or information in the form of energy. And you'll maybe start to get pictures or symbols or colors or geometries that are being given to you through the process of communion, through the process of slowing consciousness down enough to perceive that everything is conscious, and that its consciousness, say the crystal's consciousness, is delivering information and energy to you in that moment. And you may get it in the form of, like I said, symbols or colors or geometries or whatnot. And you can make note of those. But as you practice communion, you will start to literally hear guidance from that realm of consciousness, from the crystalline realm, from the tree realm, from scent realm. You begin to really, in deep communion, receive extremely clear information directly from the thing itself, whatever you're communing with. Now, that is an advanced practice, and it does take time to cultivate a mystic's vision, but you can. And the more time you are willing to devote to communion, the more likely that will occur rather quickly. So the practice I would like you to do this moon would be recognizing that communion gives off, like I said, gives off energy. And I'd like you to practice noticing what that is, first of all. And then I would like you to counter distinction that with, I'd like you to just write down now 3 things that drain your energy, the opposite of what communion does. It feeds your energy. I want you to just write 3 things very quickly without thought or having to strain about it, effort. 3 things. Going into stores is one for me. Socializing is another. You, everyone's different. And so what drains your energy is going to be different. But what I want you to start noticing is what actually adds to your energy and embellishes and inspires your energy, and what drains it. When you start being in communion with things, you start noticing that, oh, wow, I really feel a lot better. I really feel more energized. And when you're not, and you're sitting and being bored in a conversation, for example, your energy just drains like a battery, just down to zero. And I want you to not judge that, but just watch it. Observe where your energy is supported and where it is drained. This moon, that's one of your major practices. If there's an unequal exchange of energy and it's being drained, that's the opposite of communion for sure. So what I want you to do this moon is to definitely have a direct experience of communion deeply with one object, one tree, one flower, whatever you want, but specifically to be in communion with it. And most especially, regardless of whatever you choose to work with, I would ask you to also be in communion with a tree. The older, the better. Trees naturally emit, if you put an encephalogram on a tree, they emit the frequency of compassion. They emit the frequency of compassion. So when you're sitting against a tree, you're imbibing, you're taking in the frequency of compassion itself from the natural world. So no wonder many of you as priestesses have made friends with trees. No wonder you are attracted to sit in forests or against a big old oak tree. Please do that this moon. If you haven't, make it a practice to go out and sit with. The older, the better, and then watch for what guidance arises out of that communion. Really notice what guidance comes from that old tree, from the old wise ones. And I also ask you to find on YouTube a video called Lakshmi the Cow. It is so amazing, because it shows that a cow can become enlightened. And that is to really shift your consciousness to recognize that anything can become enlightened, that we are not the only ones with consciousness. So it's very touching. And I hope you'll take time. It's a half-an-hour video called Lakshmi the Cow on YouTube. And there could not be a better exemplar of communion than that. It's just amazing. So that is our first card. And the deepening with, can you see that? You know, I just never know. That is the communion card, and that's what we'll be working with on that first card. The second card is the sovereignty card, and you can see that its geometry is this cubed geometry. So it's a 3D cube rather than a flat structure. The word virgin originally meant whole and complete unto herself. It was not about whom a being chose to be with as a consort or not. This is more the energy and meaning of what actually the word sovereignty means. Sovereignty is a feeling of inner completion, of not needing anything outside yourself to feel complete or whole. A sovereign being is inner directed, having a strong center of inner knowing from which to dance in relationship. And it very importantly is about balancing male and female within you such that you do feel complete unto yourself. Sovereignty is freedom of choice. I really take that in. Sovereignty is freedom of choice. And the cube geometry is symbolic of the stable, grounded element of earth in geometry. The cube is a concrete, balanced structure. It's solid, it's whole. The cube is metaphorically what some people would say sovereignty feels like. So I want you to ask yourself this moon, what still appears to stand between you and full embodiment of your sovereignty? For example, where do you still ask permission outside the self or bend the truth to get what you think you want? So when you're looking at sovereignty, you're going to have to be willing to look at where you're still not sovereign. That is, we're all on a continuum of learning to be sovereign beings, totally interdirected, totally feeling whole and complete in the self. And so the sovereignty card and the work with the whole idea of sovereignty, this moon has to do with that exploration. And noticing where you seek outside validation from somebody outside, where you seek approval, where you'll manipulate in a situation or bend the truth a little just to get what you think you want. That is not sovereign behavior. No judgment of self, but willing to really observe where you step out of your sovereignty, where you step out of the integrity and truth of your centered being to get what you think you need or want. This is a huge undertaking, and this card is, this is no simple business here. Sovereignty is a lifelong process, but we have to start somewhere. You have to ask the question, what is standing in the way of my being an absolutely sovereign being? And that investigation alone is extremely valuable. And one of the things it will bring to your awareness is where you stand on the continuum of male and female balance within the anima, the feminine, and the animos, the masculine, where they stand in the realm of balance. So let's look for a moment. If you were to put 1 as absolutely totally female and 10 as absolutely male, where would you sit on that continuum naturally? Where would you find yourself? Feel inside and say, where is my masculine distorted or out of integrity or not clear or unexpressed, repressed? Or the same with your feminine. Where is it denied or repressed or held back? And really feel into where you sit right to start this investigation of sovereignty with the male-female balance. Where would you say you sit? For me, I'm at about a 7. I am much more comfortable in the masculine than the feminine. Isn't that curious? I think that's why Mother had me do this whole thing, to bring me to the absolute center of 5, being neither and both. But I still tend toward overdoing, and that's certainly one of the shadows of this archetype. So where do you sit on this? Just give yourself an intuitive number that arises, so you have a starting place of how to investigate sovereignty. And then with that, just to investigate it a little bit more deeply, I'd like you to cover your right eye. Just cover it. And for about a minute, I want you to look out of solely the left eye, which is the right brain, the intuitive, the gestalt of the whole, the receptive, that which sees unity. And then I'd like you to cover your other eye, left eye, and see solely out of your right eye. Just notice any differences in the way these two eyes actually perceive reality. It's astonishing when you really do this, and I exhort you to do it sometime after this call in earnest, like for 3 to 5 minutes each, and note what is different. That will give you a tremendous clue as to where you're balanced in the male or female, where you need to bring more balance to the male or the female. To observe is different. And if you need to go back and forth for a minute just to see, wow, what is different about my vision here? What am I perceiving differently? And as you do that, as a practice this moon, you will garner some really amazing information about not only your male-female balance, but sovereignty and where you stand and where you need to fluff up and bring up to the center that which is now out on either edge of the periphery of balance. So I challenge you to really work with that this moon, and as you really are looking at sovereignty. So what would need to shift or change in you to move into a more balanced female position in consciousness? That's what you want to be asking. What would need to shift or change in your life for you to come into a more balanced position? How are you holding one or the other polarity with such tenacity that you're not seeing through a balanced lens? Now, dolphins and whales have no corpus callosum. They have complete flow through on both brains, complete flow through. So they are seeing an absolutely balanced awareness. We are still learning discreetly about both male and female. And as we integrate, we too, and this has been proven, there can be and is a flow through in the brain going back and forth across the corpus callosum in the brain of complete balance. But that requires a real focus there of bringing things into balance and really honoring especially your sovereignty, which will assist that process in occurring. And finally, the third card is the light shield card, a really beautiful card. And it has on it, you can see symbols and light streaming from it. And what I want you to know about the light shield is that it's not, as you usually use the word shield, it is not about protection. Rather, it's about a symbolic representation of the mythic, archetypal, and soul-directed aspects and expression of your being. The gifts and lineages that you brought into this lifetime to explore and evolve through, and to affect the collective mind field of this planet with. I look at them metaphorically like I call them etheric soul passports. So this moon, I would like you to really consider what symbols, what colors, what geometries, what images, what times historically that you've been powerfully attracted to in this life, and really consider what you would put on your light shield. You can see what's on this one, but I want you to notice what colors, what frequencies, what symbols have powerfully attracted you since you were young. Purple has always been beyond a passion for me. It's been like food, literal food for me. So you will notice if you have strong predilections like that, that there are certain colors or symbols or times in history that you just are so gravitated toward. Those are things that would go on to your light shield that are the mythic archetypal dimensions of being, rather than an expiation of your personality and what its preferences are. Can you hear the difference? I mean, this is not what you prefer. This is about meditating to really call in the threads of your mythic being that are expressed, and there may be some really, and some unexpressed, there may be some really surprising things Like you may have a color lineage or a color that comes in really strongly as you do decide to make your light shield, which I'm sure you will during your work with this moon, that you become really aware of and start getting information, literally higher frequencies of information through just the color or the symbol that you've chosen or that's chosen you in this case. I want to show you what came to me when I was writing the 13 Moon Oracle. As I was working with this light shield tool, the sacred tool of the Lady of Communion, my friend in Denmark, Peter Christiansen, sent me this artistic rendering. I almost fell off my chair. It is a light shield, and it's directly demonstrating that the symbols that are on that light shield, representative of your mythic lineages and your gifts and your many times of service here, are being beamed back out onto the collective grid of the planet. They are coming through you, yes, and they are for you to explore and evolve through, but they are going back out onto the collective grid of the planet. And so I had immediate confirmation that yes, in fact, I was onto the right patterning here, because this was essentially the same thing, that the light was pouring back out through our evolutionary coding, back out onto the grid of the planet and uplifting just by our presence here. So the light shield is a wonderfully fun exploration this moon, to really look at what you would have on your shield, and then of course at some point to make one. So the question that comes here in this archetype, in as much as light shields are representative of your true power, not who you are as a personality, to ask yourself the question, what part of my light and power has not yet been freed into love? What part of my light and power has not yet been freed into love? This is an incredibly important investigation to make this moon, and however and whenever you want to meditate about it. Because until we really understand what we're using our power for and what that power is, you can't really free up. You can't answer that question, what part of my light and power has not yet been freed into love, until you've investigated it. So really be willing to ask yourself that question. How do I still misuse my power? How do I perceive power as being something outside myself? Something that I need validation for, or approval from others to prove that I'm powerful, or that I need outside status symbols to show me that I'm powerful, or even tools that I need a particular tool in order to be a powerful priestess. I need a particular crystal, or I needed this or that. I mean, really, this is a very deep investigation, and one that you can do with the light shield that will really reveal that answer. So an important exploration this moon is looking at the issue of self-empowerment. Because you can only be empowered from the outside to the degree that you've empowered yourself from the inside. Really hear that. You can only be empowered outside yourself to the degree that you've empowered yourself on the inside. This moon, I want you to consider to really become aware of where you're still seeking approval or pleasing or validation, and rather to choose to focus on what you wish to empower into manifestation through the clarity of your intention. Everything in the universe begins with intention, period. Everything in the universe begins with intention. Like a seed, your intentions have within them the means of their complete fulfillment. So whenever you place your attention on something, that becomes energized. Attention activates the energy field, and intention activates the quantum information field that actually fulfills your intent. Hear that again. Whatever you place your attention on becomes energized. Attention activates the energy field, and intention activates the quantum information field. which actually fulfills your intent. So this moon, I would really like for you to choose a particular intention, one that you want to bring into manifestation, and to really bring attention and intention to it as often as you're willing to sit at your altar or in contemplation, whatever you do under a tree or whatever, and bring attention. That means energy, and also intention, bring them together. And if you want to have an advanced curriculum in this, get the moon board out of the 13 Moon Oracle and track your intention from the dark of the moon all the way around the moon. You will have a fantastically revelatory experience if you're willing to do that with one intention, and to see how each phase of the moon, as you go around the lunar wheel, has a different portent and a different possibility and a different energetic to bring to the fulfillment of your manifestation, to empower your manifestation. And that is a lifetime curriculum as well. But you may as well start now. Take your intention and place it on the moon board and move the token around your moon board of the 13 Moon Oracle moon board, and follow your intention through the phases of the moon. It is very revelatory. And short of that, if you don't yet have a 13 Moon Oracle, and you do need one at some point, you really do, then just sit with your intention and attention and empower it this moon, and see what happens when you bring full conscious attention to something. Follow it and see what happens. So those are our 3 cards for this time. Communion, sovereignty, and the light shield as the tool of this archetype. So I sincerely hope that you work with those energies this moon, and that if you don't have a 13 Moon Oracle or an Alchemy of Ecstasy, that you get one, because it is the source material for this work. And it does really assist you in working with this material. So I do hope that you will do that and give yourself that gift. It's not self-promoting for me to suggest this. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with my devotion to the Mother, and how I still find things in the 13 Moon that I am pondering and trying to understand and deepen with, because it came through me. I didn't write it in the ordinary sense. So I'm so grateful for that opportunity and to be that scribe. And I ask you to really pay attention to these 3 energies this moon and enjoy the process. Enjoy all these practices. This is a rich moon for practices outside, which is a beautiful time of year to be able to go outside and sit under a tree or commune with a flower. It's a beautiful time to be able to do that. So much love to each one of you, beloveds. May you embody the Lady of Communion this moon and be joyous in that. Narayana, Narayana, Narayana.